Side Freedom Chat on the Freedom People Podcast, where we get into the nitty-gritties of all your freedoms and my freedoms, all the freedoms that we can think of anyway, as we collectively take this journey to ultimate freedom together. I'm your host, Bradley Freedom, and I'm absolutely honored to be on this journey with you. Today's guest is Greg Befort. Greg is a retired from the many roles he's had over the course of his life. Greg's been in the Air Force, in the civilian law enforcement for 13 years, taught at the academy and the community college, state of Nevada peace training officer, and then he actually became the director of that program. Greg's varied background in local, state, and county governments are unlike any other guests we've had on. Listen to why they're not all good experiences. But before we do, we need you to head on over to thefreedompeople.org and sign up as a contributing member today. You can contribute for as little as $0. The benefit of that is that you become a member and protected under our PMA. If you'd like more information about that, do the same thing. Head on over to thefreedompeople.org, and on the lower right-hand corner, you'll see a little chat bubble, and you can talk to us there directly. Come on, let's go.
I appreciate the invitation. This is really the pleasure is all mine. I love what you're doing. I love the network. I've gone and watched several of the podcasts, and it's right in alignment with the things that we're doing here in Havasu. So
Beautiful.
I've been looking forward to this.
Heck yeah, man. And that's something I really want to get into is because you are kind of local, you're in Arizona, and this is a big part of our drive is we believe in freeing the individual first, and then your family, your community, all the way up to the county. Anyway, but before we get too started, man, can you let everybody know like your name, and kind of what you do currently and all that good stuff?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Well, my name is Greg Befort, and I'm retired. I've had a lot of roles in my life. I was started in the military out of high school, went in the Air Force, got out of that, went into civilian law enforcement. Did about 13 years, 15 years doing that. I was during a pursuit, I was struck and injured by another officer who struck me with a patrol car, and ended up causing some injuries, and I ended up medically retiring from that. But fortunately, I'd been from law enforcement right into teaching at the academies and teaching at the community college. Then from there, I took a position with the state of Nevada with the Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, with a federally funded law enforcement training program. I started as a training officer there, and then ultimately went on to be the director of that program. So I've had, and ultimately I ended up retiring from the Washington County Sheriff's Office after running a public safety training center up there for about 7 or 8 years. So I got a pretty varied background, a lot in local, state, and county and federal government. Work for them all, and I don't have a real good experience with any of it, so I'll just start off with that.
And that's a beautiful little nugget.
I think I'm qualified to speak based on the experience I've had, and the things that I say are things that I've had personal experience with. I don't, I believe on standing on the truth, and that's part of the reason why we're in the mess that we're in now. Is people don't recognize the truth. They avoid it at all costs. And that and morality, I think, has really kind of gotten us where we're at. So my wife and I moved to Arizona here recently. We've been traveling for several years. Came to Lake Havasu City because her mom and dad lived here. And we lived here for the last 2.5 years. With the whole COVID debacle, when that started happening here in Havasu, out of all places, we moved to Arizona because, we left Nevada because we saw the direction Nevada was going. After having lived in California, being a police officer in California, left there, went to Nevada, saw Nevada starting to go, south on us, and thought, well, that's it. We're going to go there, and Havasu is a great place, and it is. Havasu is a great community, but unfortunately, our local leaders drank the Kool-Aid just like all the other ones did, and the minute they started the tyranny started rearing its ugly head here, that's when I decided to get involved.
Well, hey man, we're glad you did. There's a lot there. That's beautiful. I would love to hit on so much of that, just because you do have the experience, and you're not just kind of talking out your ass, so to speak. Yeah. So that's crazy. And is there any town that wasn't kind of overtaken by this?
Well, I think you look across the country, and you have a spectrum, like everything else. You have varying degrees of tyranny. There are a lot of blue states and big cities and stuff that had ultimate lockdown, and all the restrictions that went with it. Then you all the way down to places like I would consider Havasu, much freer than many other places. And I have to say that I believe that that's a direct result of the group that I'm involved with here locally, the Havasu Patriots, and our willingness to step up very early, recognize this for what it was, and push back against our local officials. Like you said, Brad, it starts with us individually. And that's the thing we've been teaching all along. And we're an education group. We're not a political action committee. This isn't about Democrat, Republican, anti-vax, pro-vax. This is about freedom and slavery. So,
boom. Right.
That's what we're about.
Right. Right. And that's
what you're about.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're kind of seeing, right? Is we're seeing like just it's a very at least for me, it's a very clear line. It's just either we have our individual freedoms, and freedom of speech is a big one, especially right now, because we see that just getting hammered right now, right? The freedom of speech kind of issue. So yeah, we're that, and that's exactly what we want to be as well. So we really praise you guys for doing that, and just to kind of hit on you guys did, and so we saw your video, obviously, you know what I mean? It's kind of been going around. It's awesome of you standing up and talking to the mayor, right? You were talking to city council, or is that what it was? City council meeting. And you had mentioned that, hey, we were here a year ago and telling you this, and it doesn't seem like it seemed to stop them. They're still here. We are a year later, and it's like, it's even more ridiculous. And now, they're coming up with this whole dark winter, right? The narrative going around, and they're, and it just seems like more of the BS. And anyway, the point is my question to you, my biggest question to you, and it's something I wanted to ask you last time we talked on the phone, is what do you see as like a good solution? I mean, or like other than us ourselves, is there a way to turn around the governments, or do new ones need to be put in new people? Maybe not even the governments. That doesn't even sound right. But maybe just new people, or, what do you think, man? What do you think on that?
Well, it's a real complex topic. I mean, we could probably just spend hours on that alone. Outside of ourselves, like I mentioned before, that concentric circle starts to grow. It grows to your immediate family, your friends and relatives, your community, your city, your county, your state. And we found that this ground up grassroots approach is really the only way to have. I really don't give a shit what's going on in Washington, D.C. I have no control over that, nor do I want to put my toe in that cesspool ever again.
Amen.
But what I do have control over, and what we can impact, is what's happening here locally, what is happening within ourselves, and what's happening around us, the environment around us. So we took that approach from the very beginning, and I believe that that's a big part of the solution. The second part is I think that we are where we are now, humanity, and I'm talking the 10,000 foot view, humanity in general. We are where we are because of two things have been destroyed here. One is the truth, like I mentioned earlier, and the other one is natural law or moral law. That's the other thing that has been decimated. And our forefathers told us from the very beginning, the Constitution was built on the principles of natural law. Basically, God's law, call it divine law, whatever term you want to give to it. It's the universal law that governs the behavior of humans. While we're in this 3D reality, there are laws, just like the law of gravity. You can believe in it or not. It doesn't care. Go step off a 12-story building and see what happens to you if you don't believe in gravity.
Right.
But those natural laws, or that moral law, basically is two prongs. Do no harm, take no shit.
Right.
The masculine, feminine, and the masculine and the male, the divine male and the divine feminine principles. So if everybody would live by that alone, do no harm, and that means, as to go to back to your answer about the solution, government is not the solution. Government is the problem. My thing is that, yes, I believe that there are other alternatives, ways of doing things. The government doesn't build roads. People go, well, who's going to build the roads if we don't have the government? Guess what, folks? They don't build the roads. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
My uncle right here, he builds the road. Your uncle, yeah.
Exactly. All government knows how to do is take and take and take, and they never give. We're in where we're at now too because of imposition and acquiescence. The government imposes, people acquiesce. Government imposes, people acquiesce. That's why we went from 14 days to flatten the curve to now 20 months later when the mandatory vaccinations are, biological agents, whatever you want to use the term. I don't like vaccine because the research I have done shows me that's not what it is at all. But now we've gone to, you'll lose your job if you don't take this under the threat. This is coercion. It's just straight up coercion.
Yep.
So there are other ways, but the government certainly doesn't want you to know about those other ways. They don't want you even imagining that there's any other solution other than what the government provides you. So there are alternatives. Voluntarism. I'm a big proponent of voluntary interactions and contracts between individuals and communities. We set up our own, farmers markets. The things that we're proposing here in Havasu to do locally to help replace those substitute systems that have failed us. Everything from education to the government, the military, our medical industry. Every single one of them now have been laid bare for us to see the corruption, and the ineptness, and the fact that it's a big club. We're not in it. They don't care about us. Matter of fact, we're in all likelihood to them, we are most likely worthless eaters and breeders. And if you get down to the very lowest levels of Satanism, which I believe is running this world right now, you have eugenicists. You have people that believe that they have the right to tell you who should live, who should die, who should procreate, who shouldn't. So that's another topic we could get into. And you and I had some discussions about, some of that and spirituality and the occult. Those are all things that, anarchy. There's a term that a lot of people, the minute you throw that out there, you get this look on your face like, well, that means chaos. That means, whoa, no, anarchy doesn't mean chaos. It doesn't mean no rules. It means no ruler. Anarchy.
Yep.
It's from the Greek. An is without.
Right.
Archon is ruler. Without rulers. We still need to have rules to function in society. But we don't need a king or a queen or a president or a shah or anybody else ruling over us. And that's what we've been conditioned to believe all along. It's not that human beings are good or bad, but we're programmable. And they've done a hell of a job on us over the last 18 months with this psychological operation that they pulled to put people in this mass psychosis that we're in now. So there, I know it was a long-winded answer to your question, but I believe that there are opportunities, there are solutions out there, and but the first thing that we have to do is know the truth ourselves first about what's happening around us in this, get past the illusion, and then wake other people up. Do the best you can to wake other people up, because again, we're not either good nor bad as humans, but we is programmable, and they've done a number on us. Yeah. So that's one of the first things that people have the hardest time grasping. I've been duped. I've been fooled. Yeah. And that goes back to, my prior occupations, in both in the military and in law enforcement and in government. I was part of that. And I've had to do a lot of painful soul searching, to come to the realization that I was complicit, in that system, whether it was the military or law enforcement or government employment. I was complicit in my own slavery, and the slavery of the people around us just by the roles that I played. So anyway.
No, that's amazing. Thank you. Thanks. I would just want to hear you talk, and I'd like to hear you talk some more, because you speak a lot of truth, and all my listeners hear me all the time. So, is there anything that you could say, first of all, maybe some tips and stuff for the listeners, like on fear, because that's really where we find ourselves, is in a position of fear mitigation, right? It's just new information. People like feeling comfortable and like that they know their environment, right? And that's where what's kind of funny, that's the antithesis of this, is that humans thrive in uncertain environments. And I'm sure yourself, anybody who's ever been in or gone into a situation you were unsure of what was going on or what the outcome would be. Now, I don't think that lots of people get into that situation enough to where they feel comfortable being in there and learning to thrive, because especially the way that we're coddled in this world, right? I mean, and it's just kind of true. I mean, that, what is it? A soft world raises soft men, right? Creates soft men, right? And it's true. And right, we've become so babied and so spoiled that we think that, like you're saying, like anarchy or something, where there's not somebody, your nanny, to tell you what to do, what's right and wrong. Or you might stub your toe or burn your finger, right? And so we're kind of in that position. It's just, it's kind of amazing. And so anyway, that's a long-winded question, man. But what do you think about fear? What do you have any tips for people, and how do they kind of come to that point? Because, dude, that's a huge thing you did. That's huge, and to even be able to admit that is even bigger. That's huge. That kind of. So any tips would be amazing, man.
Well, I guess a lot of it goes back to my younger days. I was an athlete in high school. And I learned early on that my mind could tell my body to do anything I wanted it to do. I learned from a very early age how important it was to condition my mind as much as I conditioned my body as an athlete. That transferred over into law enforcement, where we would go into situations where we're absolutely crisis situations. And you had to learn to control that fear. If you couldn't control that fear, you were not only worthless to yourself, but you were worthless to the other officers and the other people around you. So as I started to, growing as an officer and learning a lot more about the human psyche, I began to understand how critical it was when I was training officers, not just to train them on the physical mechanics of how to shoot a gun or take somebody down to the ground, or any of those type of things. It was just as important, equally as important, that I taught them how to control their mind and to understand the mental dynamics and the psychology behind what they were doing. Otherwise, I could teach you how to do this stuff all day long, and in a panic situation, in a crisis situation, if you haven't prepared your mind, you're going to fall apart. So when we would go into crisis situations as law enforcement officers, true crisis situations where people have been shot, stabbed, they've lost a loved one, whatever the case is, they are in such a state that they cannot control themselves. And we understand that. fear, that reptilian part of your brain, that lower portion of your brain, which is responsible for fight or flight and things of that nature, gets overrun in a crisis situation. And so we had to steer people. We would have to think for them and give them direction and help them out of that crisis situation. So a lot of the things that I have done over the years to help me personally overcome fear. One, I take care of myself the best I can, my body, my mind, and my soul, because this is as much a spiritual war, and you and I talked about this, Brad, as anything. They have already captured the minds of many, many, many people. They're going after your bodies and they're going after your soul. So if you don't know the enemy, and if you're not aware of what's going on around you, you are going to be in a state of fear. And that's what most people experienced during, the beginning of this COVID crisis. Nobody was like, well, what's going on? And at first I was even like, well, yeah, it's possible. It is, but then all the contradictions that I started seeing right from the very beginning. And as a cop, former cop, one of the things we learned how to do was detect deception, and as a detective, we learned body language. We learned that people lie to you when they contradict themselves and when they're inconsistent between their behavior and what they say that they're going to do. So I kind of recognized early on that number one, we were being lied to. What was the reason? Why are we being lied to? Where is this going? But having that knowledge, once I started to understand what exactly was happening here, I no longer had that fear. I no longer had that innate fear about was I going to get sick? Is my family going to be okay? Once I started realizing what was happening, like Sun Tzu said, know your enemy, know yourself first, but then know your enemy. And once you do that, once you know what's happening, you know yourself inside, and then you know what's happening outside of you, then you'll win 100% of the battles, is what he said. Yeah. So I've kind of taken that philosophy, and one thing I would tell people is do not live in fear. If you are a Christian, and to give you a little bit more of my background and how I'm probably unique in a lot of ways, I went to a Lutheran school for 8 years, a Christian Lutheran school. And, for those of you that, read the Bible and understand the esoteric meanings in Scripture, you'll understand what Christ said when he talked about fear not. You hear that. That's one of the phrases you hear the most throughout the Bible. Fear not. They know that if they can keep you in that state, that low reptilian state of fear and confusion, you are much easier to control. I did it when I was a cop. I saw people in that state and I was able to control them and actually get them, to where we needed them to be. They're doing the same thing, but for nefarious purposes. That occult knowledge that they have. And there's that other term, occult. Occult doesn't mean, your Hollywood version of Satanists in robes out burning cats out in the forest. Right. The occult, it simply means hidden. Occultus, it just simply means hidden. It's neither good nor bad, but it's knowledge that's been hidden from us for centuries. Yes. Centuries. This information has been passed down, bloodline, families, rulers, and call them what you want. I call them the predator class. Sure. But they simply have information that has been hidden or occulted from the rest of the population. And big part of that is how to control the human psyche. The other part is natural law and understanding the laws of nature and how they work. All they have done is created a power differential between us at the bottom of the pyramid and those at the very top of the pyramid who have the knowledge and use it for their own flat out evil psychotic purposes. So
yeah, eugenics, huh?
There's one way, to deal with fear. There's kind of my take on fear and what I've learned to deal with it. I've learned to look. I'm 61 years old. I've been around. I know who I am and why I was put on this earth. And they could take my body there'll be consequences. I can guarantee you. If you come to my house and try to, take my freedom, I don't care what color uniform you're wearing, whether it's a blue one or a tan one or a camouflaged one. Doesn't matter to me. I will treat you the same way I would treat any other person who comes to take my freedoms and protect myself and my family. So I know who I am. I'm here now to plant seeds. That's what I tell people in our group. I'm just here to plant seeds, seeds of truth, to get you to start thinking about the things that you used to believe in that you should probably no longer hold true in your mind, like government's good, they take care of us, the belief in authority, all of those things that are holding us back from our freedom and where we need to be as humanity. We are not evolving. We are not evolving. And if you look at the trajectory of where we're going in humanity, it's not pretty. So, part of what's happening here, we deserve, people don't like to hear that. Sorry, I'm not here to make friends. And I tell people this all the time why would you, how do you get up in front of the city council and say the things you do? So, look, first of all, they work for us. I don't work for them. And second of all, the truth is belligerent and they don't like to hear it. And when you start telling people, whether it's a city council or people in general, you start speaking the truth, people don't like it. I mean, you've experienced this, I'm sure, Brad, and especially with what the things that you're doing on your show, you're going to say some things that are going to sting like hell. But it's still the truth.
Right. And see, and that's not
going to get up and
right. And that's not the intent. The intention is never, I'm never trying to like hurt anyone's feelings in any way. Right. It's not like I'm being a jerk or something, trying to be a mean person to people. It's just that I'm very direct and I'm not very good at sugarcoating things. I never have been. And I'm not good at dumbing down things and diluting information because I think it does a disservice to anyone. Right. It's not country music that is offensive. It's you that is offended by country music. Right. You know what I'm saying? And I use that analogy a lot. It's some people love it. And that's again, back to free speech, and that's a huge thing right now is like, it's not what I said. It's how you interpret things to take it. However you want to take that, that's up to you. Unless I'm directly attacking somebody, that's different. But if, us having a conversation, people are going to be highly offended by, anything. It doesn't matter. And that's the point, right? It's people need to learn to start to take responsibility for themselves. And that includes information that they hear. They need to learn how to process that. And, it just is what it is. And again, but it's never, malicious or trying, but like you said, now we're considered belligerent and the more that the tyrannical overreach happens, the more and more free speech will be considered belligerent and truth.
Right. Well, and the big thing that I see now is a lack of accountability. And when I get up in front of the mayor and the city manager, and I tell them you have lied, there's a lot of different ways to lie. Obfuscation of the truth is one of the biggest ways that politicians particularly get away with lying. So they lied to the citizens of Lake Havasu City, and I caught them in the lie, which is how I got involved in this whole thing. And they also violated moral law. Not only did they break the law, constitutional law, the criminal law, but they also violated moral law.
Right.
So, and they lied to do this one, and they lied to do this one. So when I get up in front of them and I say, you lied, and what you did was immoral, and it. You're going around and claiming you have the authority to determine which businesses get shut down and which ones stay open, that you have the authority to tell people to put masks on, and that somehow, and they dressed up his proclamation to make it look like this proclamation, to make it look legal sounding. I knew the difference, and that's when I got involved. And so when I say you lied, and people get upset, how could you do, that's mean, that's mean. No, that's not mean. That's telling them the truth. And for a lot of people, that's just too uncomfortable. It creates, I'd just rather stay in my comfortable little safe space here and absorb the lies. I don't want to hear it from some guy in a t-shirt and shorts and a ball cap on, who, coming in front of the city council and telling me these things. I intentionally dress the way I do when I go in front of these people and talk to them.
Perfect.
I intentionally dress the way I do.
Yes. Like you said, they work for us, man. Yeah.
You get no respect that you don't earn, first of all, and you haven't earned our respect. As a matter of fact, you've lost your right to govern because of the actions of at least the two of them there. Now, the rest of city council, they stayed silent, just like all the legislators and the senators and congressmen did when all this started. You heard crickets. None of them. None of our state senators, assembly people, none of them. When all this started rolling out, nobody stood up and went against Ducey or the governors of any of these other states, or the city mayors, or the county commissioners, or none of them. Nobody, no district attorneys, no attorney generals, none of them went after these guys for clear and blatant violations of our constitutional rights, many of them. So that lack of accountability is what drove me to get up in front of them and put them on notice. You lied, you broke the law, you violated moral law here. We can forgive mistakes of competency. The citizens of Lake Havasu City are good people. They can forgive mistakes of competency, but you cannot forgive mistakes of character. If you lie and you're immoral, you can't deal with that, can't fix that. You're a bad person and you shouldn't be in a position of authority. And whether that's a mayor or whether that's the president of the United States or some king in some country, these people that claim to have authority over other human beings, this whole concept of government, back to what we had talked about before, there are other alternatives, and we have been conditioned to believe in a belief in authority, and it's a religion, and it's called statism.
Yeah.
It's called statism. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Government can come and taxation. There's another euphemism for theft. It's just theft. Quit euphemizing it. Let's start calling these things what they are. Right. Government is slavery. Look at the Latin, etymology of the word itself. Yeah, govern, gubernare, to govern, mente, to govern the mind. Government is to control the mind. Entertainment is to hold the mind. Entertain, meant, M-E-N-T, anything that ends in meant, is the Latin, is the derivative, is meant, the mind. So, people, first of all, there are three things I believe that have caused us, again, to be where we are. One is ignorance. People will ignore the truth and accept the lies, whether it's the belief in authority, and the government should be able to tell us what to do. They should be able to put a needle in our arms if that's the right thing to do, okay? The belief in authority, apathy is the other one that we saw. Well, if it doesn't affect me, I'm not going to stand up and say anything out of that fear of, losing my job, or fear of being ostracized, or, cancel cultured, or whatever it is, that fear that keeps people from speaking out against this. And most of it is apathy. I'm comfortable. I got mine. Hey, no reason. We've got thousands of retired officers and military people in this town who took an oath to defend the Constitution, who are now retired and are sitting back on their asses. And hey, I got mine. There's no reason for me to stand up. I know it's wrong, but hey, nah. You're cowards. That's the third element: ignorance, apathy, and cowardice. And I'll tell them to their faces. You're cowardice. Is this the legacy you're going to leave your kids and grandkids? And I got 10 grandkids and 4 kids.
Nice.
I'll be damned.
Yeah.
I'll be damned if I'm decent. And it's been eroded. It's been slowly destroyed. And I'll be damned if I'm going to allow that to, I'm going to hand the same thing mess over to my grandkids and my kids. Not going to do it. So stand up. That's the message. Just stand up,
Right.
Speak out. The universe was spoken into existence, right?
Yep.
The Bible,
The
if you
word.
if you're a Christian, the word, you got to speak up. The other thing I tell people, how about you just not comply? Quit complying. You don't need to go out. You don't need to come to the city council and speak if you can't speak. If you can't write a letter, if you can't donate money to what it is that we're doing, go and support those who do speak. But beyond that, stop complying. Stop complying.
That's our biggest tool that we have is peaceful non-compliance. Just stop doing what they say.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple, but it's also very powerful. Very powerful. So accountability, that's a big one. I like that one a lot. And kind of what you're talking about there is the difference between legal and lawful, right? So what's legal is not lawful. And that's because legal is your public. That's that's your corporations, the state of Arizona, the city of Havasu. Those are all for-profit corporations with Dun and Bradstreet numbers, right? So that's, and they have corporate bylaws. That's what those laws are, legal, right? It's legal, and they're all mandates and all these, requirements and all this stuff. But to your point, and you've hit on it a lot, is that then there's what's lawful. And that just means do no harm to others, love thy neighbors, you love yourself, just very simple, just stuff that we know innately inside, right? Now, the funny thing is why do all of these things have to be for-profit corporations? Why do people form a corporation in the first place? It's for protection. They don't want to be personally liable. That should be your first clue in anything right there is, wait, that just means that maybe you're doing something dishonest. I personally, I want to be held liable for all my craft work. Anything that I do or anything that I put out. Yeah. I mean, obviously I've got my damn face on the camera now and everywhere, but I'm just saying like that's a big thing, right? And I feel like us as individuals, we're all expected to be held accountable for any of our actions. So, and that's really where I think I'm trying to distill this down to is you standing in front of that city council. And this is where I think we might be able to help you guys, or I don't know, but this is stuff that we're doing and stuff we're doing with hospitals right now, but it's the same thing. It's corporations. Corporations are corporations, and you can hold them personally liable, especially through insurance, and there's affidavits and all kinds of cool stuff. I'm sure you already got, I know Linka Coloma is a big supporter, and you guys probably already got her filing all kinds of stuff, but there's got to be a way to have them held personally accountable for the things that they're doing. You know what I mean? Because I think that makes people, if you're being held personally accountable, that it kind of makes you do stuff better, right? Or just a little bit more like honest, whatever you want to say. So what do you about? Have you guys tried anything like that? You know who Linka is, right?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Lincoln and her group from Southern California they've been up here. We support what they're doing. They support what we're doing. Great group of people and true patriots down there.
Yes.
Look, my experience, I'll tell you right now, the justice system is broken. It's been broken for quite a while. We have two sets of justice systems in this country, one for the haves, one for the have-nots, and that's the reality of it. I'll give you an example, and I don't care. When I discovered what had occurred here at the city, first thing I did was went to the police chief and met with him and his command staff over what had happened. They sent an officer, make a short story here, they sent an officer to the gym that I worked out in under the color of authority, stating that they were there to just inform them, not here to write tickets. Okay, we're just here to let you know the governor's, gyms are supposed to be shut down. The minute they did that, and the gym manager told me that, I said, "Oh, this is wrong. We're going to have a chat with the police chief." So I wrote a letter. She told me exactly what happened. I wrote the letter. I said, "Here's the violations, here, and here. What happened? said, well, we were just there, didn't enforce anything, didn't do any of that. Well, no, chief, that's not the case. And she came and testified at the city council meeting right behind me when I got done testifying, and said, the officer told me he wasn't there to cause any problems. Later that day, he called me and said, hey, when are you going to shut down? She said, well, I thought we were good. Well, no, the city manager wants to know when you're going to shut down. So they weren't there under, the direction of the governor. They were there at the direction of the city manager. See, when that COVID trigger was pulled, when we declared a local emergency proclamation, that set in motion funding. I know this.
Yeah.
I've lived it. By declaring that local emergency proclamation, that started the flow of funding. The problem was we didn't have one case in Havasu of COVID at the time. We didn't get the first one in Mojave County until a week later. So he declared that the conditions were there to declare a local emergency proclamation. That was a lie. It was a lie.
Full on.
Resources were not strained. We hadn't even had lie. Not only that, so they violated 18 USC 241 and 242, which I brought to their attention, which is sending an officer there under the color of authority to coerce a business into shutting down. That's a felony. And if you conspire to do that, that's a felony. So between the city manager and the mayor and the attorney, there's been felonies committed. And that's initially how I got involved with this thing. But I went to back to the accountability issue that we were talking about before, and the lawful and the legal aspect of this thing. There's only one law in nature. There's only one, the creator of the universe is the one that makes the laws, whether it's the physical laws of the universe, gravity, and the things the thermodynamics, all the things I talked about before, or natural law, which governs the behavior of humans while we were here on this earth, and the consequences, moral law, and the consequences for violating it, which we are experiencing now. Okay, so that you don't need to teach people. It's innate, like you said. We know right from wrong innately. We know that, but our consciousness, most people's their level of consciousness is so low, so vibratory low. They're in such a low state of vibratory consciousness that they can't see the truth. They can't think for themselves, and many of them would prefer not to. Well, then if I think for myself, if I make these, well, then I'm accountable. I don't want to be accountable. So I'll let big daddy government, big mommy government tell me what to do, or the health experts, or Fauci, whoever, tell me what to do because I can't think for myself, or I prefer not to. So
yeah, man. Yeah, it's
I'm just kind of free flowing here.
No, I am too. I love the conversation. I love talking to you.
I answered your question.
No. I don't even really. I had a couple, but we already went through those. I usually don't even. It's just there was a couple I wanted to ask you, which we did, but no, I just kind of wanted, just keep going. But so like we talked about, like this didn't just happen overnight, man. Right? We've raised a couple generations now of compliant regurgitators, right? Like, and I call them regurgitators because that's really any of these, big, huge professions, right? I want to say the glorified professions, lawyers, doctors, right? Being two of the biggest ones, right? You're really good at regurgitating information. You get packed full of information and then you have to spit it back out, right? And let's not even say the professions, but just in college and school, it's all about complying and then regurgitating information, right? So we've raised a bunch of non-thinking compliant people. So then we can see how that kind of, right? But I mean, MK Ultra, and I'm just kind of asking your question, where do you think, we can go back to the 1400s, right? And the SESQV, and when they started manipulating the SESQV fund and taking the souls of people. I don't know, but it's just crazy to think about where we're at. And then just where did this, this past 18 months, like you said, it seemed like it's gone really, really, really fast down into this communist hole. Right, because this is communism, dude. This is world communist takeover. It's not anything else. And people are disguise it however you want, but that's what's happening on the deeper level. At least I feel.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head, and I want to go back to, because I don't think I completely answered your question. Where I was going with that is I basically put together a case for the violations that I described before. I sent it to the Mojave County District Attorney's Office. Got a call from deputy DA, he was talking to me, hey, you got a case, I'll put you on as my, my testifying officer. I mean, we had this laid out, right? Until the DA got a hold of it. And then I get a call, hey, look, this is federal law, federal violations. You should send it to U.S. Attorney's Office, Civil Division, Phoenix. Okay. So then send it to the Civil Division in Phoenix. They say, oh, no, this is a criminal matter. You need to send it to the Criminal Division, to the FBI, and they'll investigate for you. Well, right there, I knew it was going nowhere.
That's done.
None of this was going anywhere. So the justice system that we have here now, and I'm telling you from prior experience as well as recent experience, is not designed for us. It is not designed. It's designed to protect the corporations, the city governments, the state governments, the federal governments. It is not set up to defend our freedoms. And I'm seeing no evidence that there's any court in this country that is going to step up and fill the role. See, nobody's coming to save us. And that's the other thing I try to tell people, Brad, is quit looking outside of yourself for Donald Trump or some other politician or the government or somebody else,
Whatever.
some religious leader to come and save you. Whoever. Yeah. Quit looking outside of yourself for
your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, anybody. Stop. Save yourself. Everything's in here.
Christians who true Christians don't do this. Fake Christians, and there's a ton of them, they'll march up, they'll go up that mountain, they'll hike up that mountain, and they'll pitch their tent halfway up, and wait for Christ to come and save them. All right, I've taken this as far as I can go. Now it's up to you, Christ. You can come and save me from here.
Yeah.
It's the same concept with evil. Well, it's evil is something outside of us. It's some force. It's some evil thing that controls us. It's not me. It's not what's within me. Look, evil is simply anything that destroys freedom. Right. In my opinion, I look at the definition of evil as anything that will destroy, anything that destroys freedom. Mm-hmm. And if you look at, we have on our website, we have all kinds of resources for people because most of them don't understand the Constitution. They haven't picked up the Constitution or the Bill of Rights for decades. Didn't understand it when they did. Don't know their rights. Don't know a right from a wrong. Mm-hmm. And so our job is we've been providing resources for them to educate them about what their rights are, what they're not, the role of government, and what's been happening to us here, to include the spiritual aspect that we talked about before. Because again, in the military, they use the term asymmetrical warfare, full spectrum domination. That's exactly what we're seeing here is things that you see coming out of military and CIA intelligence, what's happening here to us. Full spectrum, economic, psychologically, physically, they're messing with the, supply chains. This is a slow demolition of everything that people thought they believed in. And then what's going to happen is problem, reaction, solution. Guess what? Government and they're going to sweep in and be the saviors now. As long as you just give up the rest of your freedoms, yep. We'll come in and take care of this chaos that we created. That's how Hegelian dialectic and the problem, reaction, solution work. With government.
Yep.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed you do. Right. So like you said, man, it's what you're talking about here. So to put a cap on the answer on that little subject there, because I do want to go back to it, but is there anything that again, and this is the analogy I use, it's like we're feeding, we keep paying attention, and the word on a spiritual level, we can do it, but paying attention, right? All that matters on this planet is the human soul. We're bearing witness, right? And yeah, even though I'm not attached to or affiliated to any religion, just because I was baptized a Baptist, I went to I was a Seventh-day Adventist for years with my childhood went through so many different religions, and I saw the hypocrisy in all of them, right? And again, and that's actually one of the things the Bible warns you about is organized religion. Mm-hmm. That and doctors, lawyers, right? And again, these are things and false gods, and these are all things that I feel that that we outsource, and the things that we most definitely should never outsource is your health. Nobody can ever tell you how you're inside. Why? It's kind of crazy to go outside of yourself to ask somebody, hey, how do I feel? Are you going to tell me if I'm good? You know what I mean? That kind of thing but that's what we do. And especially when we start talking about psychologists, and another thing we outsource is our legal issues and things that we need to take care of. We outsource that to someone else. Right. And then we need to be represented. Right. And again, so it's just, I don't know, to me, the solution is for us to, I guess, maybe we start a second kind of, I don't know. And maybe that's what's splitting off here. Cause I really do feel that there's that chasm is growing so wide now. I mean, I don't know how you could be still on a fence. You know, you must have very wide legs, man, or something. I don't know how you're still on a fence, because that fence has got to be so wide now. I mean,
well, again, I think it goes back to those three things that I talked about before. And I always like to, I'll use the Wizard of Oz, the analogy that you use the Wizard of Oz, again, ignorance, apathy, and cowardice. You have the Scarecrow, the Lion, and the Tin Man, and the Lion. Yep. So I really believe that it starts with ourselves first. And until we understand and adhere to the tenets of natural law, first of all, people they have to know it. And that's another thing, another one of those secrets that have been kept from us. We're living under, well, again, I mentioned earlier, the system of Satanism. I'll define Satanism as not the Hollywood version that most people do, people out sacrificing cats and doing all that stuff goes on. Don't get me wrong. Satanic ritual abuse and child trafficking, all of that goes on. And we got some sick, evil people doing those things. But really, my definition of Satanism kind of goes like this in a hierarchy. And this isn't anything, that I made up. These are all things, nothing is new under the sun. I look at Satanism as, first of all, as egotism. Egotism is the only reality that exists, is the one that's going on right up here in my mind. That's the only reality that exists. There is no objective reality. Then you go down, then you're a solipsist as well, which means there is no such thing as objective truth. There is such a thing as objective truth. You just need to discover it. Well, and if there is no such thing as objective truth, then there can be no such thing as objective morality. And that's the crux to where we are right now in this country, is moral relativism. We have people who believe that there should be a group of folks, whether they're richest, they're politicians, or they're come from royalty, whatever title you want to give them, whatever reason you want to put them up on a pedestal. Right. Those people have the right to dictate right from wrong. And look at man's law, for example. Slavery used to be legal, right? Slavery used to be legal. It was not moral. We got a lot of laws that are legal, but they are not moral, and shouldn't be on the books at all.
Not lawful, right? They're legal, but not lawful.
Yeah, legal, but not lawful. So you digress from there. You go from moral relativism now down to social Darwinism. And that is that, well, if there is no right or wrong, a moral relatives, if there is no right and wrong, well, then we get to make up, or we get to decide. It's the survival of the fittest. It's the most ruthless, the richest, whatever label you want to put. Social Darwinism is where we're at here at that level. Then from there, there's only one other place to digress down to, and that is eugenesis. And those are the eugenicists, the people, the Gates and the other people who believe that, well, if there is no objective truth, there is no objective morality, we get to decide what's right and wrong. It's the survival of the fittest here, or the richest. Then we get to decide who lives and who dies, who gets to procreate and who doesn't. That's where we're headed, folks. And unless we wake up to what's occurring around us, we're going to end up with another Pol Pot, or a Stalin, or a Russia, or a Hitler ruling over us. And we all know what the outcome of those scenarios are.
Hence the Nuremberg Code.
Yes.
But we're totally ignoring right now, by the way. Right. So it's just it blows my mind, man, how this is recent future. People remember the Holocaust. They remember all that, but no one seems to remember what came of that. You know what I mean? There was good things that came of that. And those good things were called the Nuremberg Code, right? Those articles in that Nuremberg Code, man, where no one can be coerced. They has to be voluntary and fully informed. You have to have, and none of that is happening on any level right now. You know what I mean? Well, I know you do, but like with the media kind of being all, and again, it's brilliantly done. But here's the thing, is that we do know that it's, again, personal responsibility. I don't blame the media. I don't blame the corporations. I'm not blaming any of that. I'm blaming the individual. And that's because you need to figure out your soul. You got to go inside, man. You got to sit there, because your moral compass is inside. It's there. Truth, objective truth, is inside. It's not out there. You're never going to learn it outside of yourself. And that's why the term without. If you're always looking outside of yourself, you'll always be without. If you're not looking within, you'll always be without, right? And so
Exactly.
So yeah, man. Just
the other issue that we have is we've got a world of order followers. Whether you're in a corporation or you're a police officer or a military person, and when you're an order follower, and this is something I had to accept within myself, I was an order follower. I was an order follower in the military. I was an order follower as a police officer working for the government. I was an order, and I did it for a paycheck. When you are willing to follow orders, by nature, you are not a moral person. If you're willing to follow orders, you have set your consciousness, your ability to discern and distinguish right from wrong up on a shelf. And when you do that, you're an immoral person. You're following somebody else's order. I ask people, who is more morally culpable, the order giver or the order follower? And people will, the order giver. Wrong. The order giver is culpable. I said, who is more culpable, for violating? The order follower is, because they're the one that actually conducts the action that causes harm to another sentient human being.
Agreed.
So it's always the order follower, the officer that went to that gym under orders to shut that gym down, set his consciousness up on a shelf. He knew it was morally wrong. He knew it was legally wrong, but he was willing to do it. And that's the problem. Whether you're in the military, and this is the thing that I'll be focusing a lot of my attention on here in the future is law enforcement and military guys, because a lot of them, they and not necessarily here in Havasu, but in a lot of these cities, they committed atrocities that they knew were wrong. They also stood down when they knew that they should have taken action against BLM and some of these other, but they took orders and they knew it was wrong. So when you do that, again, you sacrifice a lot of your soul. Every time you violate your moral conscience, you a little piece of your soul gets eaten away. So one of the things I want to do is put together curriculum and material to address law enforcement and military people, to let them know, one, you're talking to somebody who's been through it before, because if we can't get them on board, think about this. If we can't get law enforcement and the military on board to not follow orders when those weapons have been turned inward towards our citizens now. Military and law enforcement has been weaponized against our own people now. So if we can't get them to wake up to what's occurring here, think about where we're headed.
World of hurt, man.
So my goal is to get some curriculum, get some material. I'm interested in doing the things that you're doing, with the podcasts, and you've had a lot of success and a lot of traction. Geez, you interviewed David Icke, right? You interviewed David Icke. Yeah. Holy shit, man. I mean, that's
we thought the same thing. Awesome. Holy shit, what's he coming on our podcast?
I watched that interview, man. That was incredible. But so you're doing some great things, and that's something that I intend to do too, is you got to get out there, man. It's not enough to go and stand in front of the city council and talk to our Patriot group. I need to make sure that my voice, your voice, everybody's that there's speaking for freedom, part of the freedom movement here. We have a platform because they're slowly chopping that away too. Censorship is huge.
Oh yeah.
This.
Yeah, that's part of this. What we're doing right now is so we're helping, like, for example, the Healthy American. We're helping her redoing her website, taking it off of Squarespace, off of anything that's like being censored, and we're creating all new stuff. And that's what the freedompeople.org. So, and that's something that actually we want to talk to you about, is so the freedompeople.org, we finally got groups set up. So they're like Facebook groups, but we've also, what we've implemented or implementing here in the next couple of weeks is it's a learning platform called LearnDash. But anyway, it's a learning platform where you can go and create classes and all that stuff and have people go through and take your courses. And we would love to have you on and set something up like that, because and any way that we can support you, Greg, is really what I want to say. But this is one way that we know, and we're trying to help people like yourself to give you a free platform to go on that that's not going to be taken down or censored, but you're able to acquire people and then teach whatever you're teaching, your freedom stuff. And we'll show you all about it, man. But again, if you want some help learning how to set up the podcast, we'd be honored to help you. Come back on, please come back on. I know we're running short, but please, because there's so much I want to talk to you about, because I agree that what you just said right there, this is something that is so passionate inside of me right now is I have friends in law enforcement and cousins and, and all this, and none of them really will speak to me right now, but I would love to be able to sit and speak to some officers or just anyone, right? And or even if they just hear, if any officers in here are hearing this, it's not, we are all people, and we need to learn that this is about us, the people. This isn't about corporations and their stuff. And if we can just learn the difference between private and public, we can protect ourselves from the public, and they can just stay and be in their little public space. But in the private, we can have our own private too. And I know that we can find enough people, and again, so I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but that's something that's so passionate. And so thank you for hitting on that, man. That's perfect, because that's we're in a world of hurt, man. If we cannot get our brothers and sisters that are of the arms right here at our door, if we can't get our sheriff, right now, we comprehend that it is the police and their police's job. They're policy enforcers. That's their job. We get it. Right. But the sheriff, man, at least needs to be on our side. We got to have our sheriff. That's of the people. That's our lawful protectors.
Well, and before I close, I know we're running short of time. I wanted to, you talk about the sheriff, and I've got to talk about the CSPOA and the work that Sheriff Richard Mack,
absolutely,
and Steve Mello, those guys are doing. I'm a member of CSPOA, and I'll tell you, Sheriff Mack, I've met him personally. Have the utmost respect for him, and I stand on the shoulders of people like him, who are trying to make sure that those law enforcement, particularly the sheriffs, and I've met with our sheriff, that they fulfill their constitutional roles. They have more authority than the president has in their county. They can kick the federal government out of their county. They have that much authority. So yes, the sheriffs are really important. And I got to tell you, I would highly recommend people, if they're not familiar with the CSPOA and Sheriff Richard Mack, whether you're law enforcement or not, it doesn't matter. They have civilian memberships, and they need the support and help, and it's well worth it.
Yeah. And what is it? CSPOA.org. Is that what the website?
Yeah, I believe that's what it is. CSPOA.org. Okay. And you can go there, take a look at the material. Sheriff Mack has been all over the country. And he's had a lot of success where he's gone. Can't say enough good things about him.
Yeah, same. And, shout out to Steve Tuminello as well. He's been a battler in this long time with Sheriff Mack. He actually is the one who introduced us. So 1000%, all the viewers go over there. What's that?
Steve, I got to tell you, that guy is a hard charging patriot. I mean, I consider him a friend too. Steve has just been an exceptional guy, exceptional patriot to work with.
Same. Yeah. So thank you again, Greg. And we're going to we'll do this again for sure, but I'll talk to you. I'll call you soon and we'll talk about.
If we could hook up after, I'd love to find out more about. Oh, we could go on for, you and I know we could go on for a long time, buddy, but I know you got to go. And I appreciate the opportunity to have this platform. You do tremendous work, Brad. Just keep it up, buddy. You're doing the good work, the great work. And we need more people like you. And I hope I can learn from you.
Yes, absolutely. We want to, please, any way that we can support, man. Absolutely. I'll call you soon.
All right. Take care.
Thank you so much. All right. Thanks, buddy.
Yep. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.